Let's bless the Most High as we come before Him in His presence. We bless the Most High, the glory of heaven, who has sovereignty over all flesh, for who He is unto us. In His greatness, He continually shows forth His mighty hand, and our hearts are blessed with gratitude that He would look in the earth and choose a people handpicked by Him and gathered by His expression, that we may behold His glory. Blessing and honor to the Holy One of Yasharal for placing us under His tutelage, the tutelage of His holy voice, a prophet from the highest, Prophet Melek Eshadar. He leads and guides us unto the truth of the word, preparing a royal priesthood, blameless and pleasurable unto the Father. And blessed be the Almighty for the holy elder and evangelist, our holy overseer Isaiah, the covering of Yah, who watches over the word that it be performed. The Father has surely smiled on us, beloved, and has given us a spiritual mother who we love and adore. We thank the Father of light for the children of the holy Nabi, the crown prince, Prophet Yahiel, and the crown princess, Evangelist Eldara, and the royal house of the prophet, and unto the sovereign family of the fourth house of faith and power. We are a blessed people indeed, that the Father would choose to show us years in advance the things that will come upon the earth. This is not for vanity, but is for us to prepare ourselves for that which is to come. Throughout the past 2 decades, the Mystery Illumined has spoken to us about racism here in America, genocide of the Edenic black race, and the war of the races. Though we have seen this very thing happen in portions, now it is more prevalent. It has been 400 years since slavery was initiated in this country. And even after it was abolished in 1870, the gap that it created between 2 particular races of people, whites and blacks, has been covered over. The wound is still fresh. And today we are seeing a fire ignite as the result of all the years of hurt, pain, and hatred that has lingered. One report stated, since the death of 18-year-old Michael Brown at the hands of police in Ferguson, Missouri, police arrest and kill black men at a far higher rate than other groups. This year, the wrongful death of George Floyd at the hands of police was captured and seen by the entire world and has sparked protests, riots, and lootings in cities all over the United States. It has caused the government in many cities to implement curfews, activate armed forces and their National Guards. This outrage has sparked a global uprising in support of the injustice unto a race of people, as well as their own individual racial prejudices that they face in their respective countries. For centuries, the Edenic black race has suffered injustices at the hands of those who believe they are superior, namely whites. Blacks, especially in America, have experienced racism on various levels in education, housing, public health, equity, discrimination in employment, and more. Police brutality is just one aspect in which blacks suffer at the hands of whites. We speak of a race of people who have been enslaved, viewed and treated as beasts, their women and men raped, being hung from trees, lied upon, blamed, shot dead in the streets, treated unjustly, beaten to death, denied certain rights. The list goes on. No other race of people has suffered such injustices at this catastrophic level than any other than the Edenic black race. Please come with me as we embark upon the journey into the book of the prophet Eshadar. On April 11th of 1999, the Holy Nabi declared, the past 7 to 8 years, there are reports of wars and various nations committing genocide. We are back in that era. The spirit of it has been released. Those who are racist in America are going to attempt, and they have already, to secretly commit genocide against the black race, because the black race is growing and increasing in popularity. They are filling many of the major cities in America, from New York to Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia, to DC, Washington, the capital of the United States of America. These cities host large populations of black residents. You cannot think for one moment that the government is not threatened by it. The Holy Prophet continued in his proclamation that he will share with us what the Most High conveyed to him in relation to what was just expressed and what occurred in the early years of the 90s. In one of the major cities, the Holy Prophet declared, there was a major heat wave killing hundreds upon hundreds of blacks. Whites were also killed, but most were blacks. Many thought it was just a normal heat wave. The Father revealed what caused it. When there is heat, walls tend to sweat, causing a melting process. The chemicals in the paint were released as gas. The majority who died were those who lived in projects. The Almighty has allowed His holy Melek this day to reveal this reason. As a cover-up, he said, the government refurbished these apartments because they learned it works. They are preparing again to launch the same attack, committing genocide against a race of people called blacks. But the glory of heaven has revealed it, and it is no longer a secret, uttered his prophet. No manner of cleanup can cover up anything from the Father. His holy vessels will reveal these things. And then again, the voice of Yahweh declared on February 16th of the year 2000, as the Holy Melek shared that it was 2 days ago that the Almighty had dealt with him and brought him to an open forum where the President of the United States of America, whose name was Clinton at the time, uttered words in behalf of the African American people. As the prophet listened in the vision, he knew that this was something to come, but the plan of it has already gone into motion. What is to be done in this agreement and under this party government before he leaves office will cause black African Americans to be in favorable positions, where they will prosper financially and receive government assistance in ways you have never imagined before. The Holy Nabi heard Clinton utter these words, "We must be pardoned." When he uttered those words, the prophet declared, he stopped to listen more attentively. Clinton said, "White America must be pardoned, for we have mistreated this people and we would not confess it. We must be pardoned." He continued speaking. "In the short time in office that I have," he said, "I will do all in my power to see to it that they are given back what is theirs." It's revealed through the Holy Malachi. Once again, the Holy Melek prophesied unto us on April 8th of the year 2001. where the voice of the prophet of the Most High declared, "The highest power revealed to me as he beheld a plot. And he uncovered a plot and heard these words, erase and remove." The holy Melek uttered, "Erase and remove Hispanic people, for they are multiplying like animals." What was declared was not issued from the Most High, but that which was unfolded was spoken from the authorities. Yahweh allowed his holy prophet to hear it because of fear within the authorities of them taking over America. Then we continued on September 8th of 2002. The holy Maliki of the Most High stood before us and reminded us that years ago, even under the tabernacle in the aisles, he spoke to us about the war of the races. And he told us also of the war of the two religions, Christianity and Islam. Christianity will rise up against Islam, he said, and Islam against Christianity. The rod of Yahweh further said, "We are coming to the time, moving in the time of the war of the races." This was declared on September 8th of 2002. As we continue in the book of the Holy Maliki on December 7th, 2007, the Holy Melek asked a question as he declared the word of Yahweh. "Who has heard of Barack Obama?" he said. "He is an Adenic black man running for the office of the White House." The holy prophet conveyed, it is a ploy. He is put in position and given the funding to run for office, that perhaps if he wins or if he loses, it does not matter. He is not the one. He is just a figure placed in front. The holy Melek proclaimed, "The Most High showed him the government working together." For years, America has been divided into two political parties, the Republicans and the Democrats. This did not work nor prove successful. Where there is division in any government, in any head, there will be a collapse of the nation, the holy prophet uttered. Often the Republicans, because they favor the wealthy, they have placed in office those who have wealth, money, and dominance in the government. For the first time, as the Most High made known to you last year, this would change. There would come a shifting. There would be a shift in the government. The Holy Nabi proclaimed, "For a long time the Republicans dominated, and now for the first time the Democrats outnumber them, only because the government is blending as one." People believe that there are separate political parties. They are not, until it neither matters if you vote. Some years ago, at least 20 to 50 years ago, it mattered some. Today, it matters not if you vote. This man is used to join the two, but many do not see the joining or understand what is happening. Never in history has it ever been recorded in this country where a black man runs for president and runs close. Jesse Jackson did, but he did not come close. You must know why he is close. One may think because the people favor him of themselves. No, the holy Maliki declared, it is because every bit of his persona projects the opposite race. He has the funding. That kind of money is not allowed unless those in power give it. The Almighty reveals some of the things that shall be exposed about him. What will be exposed, the Most High said, it would be a lie used to bring him down. This brings us to the demising of a people they desire to make extinct in the earth, called black people. The glory of heaven revealed this to his Melek. The image of the Edenic man, the black man, will not only be demised, but despised. By this we know of the coming of the Almighty is near. On May 1st of 2008, the Son of the Highest Power declared to the elect the rift in the nation regarding racism, as he proclaimed 6 years ago, and has periodically reminded the saints. The Holy Prophet said that what we see happening concerning Obama, you were made aware this would happen. When he was the favorite, a false accusation would be raised up against him, a lie. Ever since then, it has been so and has escalated. From 1999, I warned the people of a rift in the nation in racism. The Holy Melek declared. It is unraveling. Oh, let's bless the Most High for the words that have been uttered from the Most High's realm, Son. Holy elect, we heard the declarations and the conveyance of the prophet of Yahweh in its layers from as early as 1999 concerning racism and the rise of racial tension in the earth, and specifically the United States of America. The current atmosphere, when it comes to what is known as race relations in the U.S., this is a rift, the Holy Melek declared, that is tearing the nation apart. It was never hidden. It has always been an undercurrent that has gripped this nation since the Europeans arrived on these shores. It is a systematic and institutionalized into the very fabric of this country. Racism is defined as discrimination, prejudice, or antagonism directed against a person or people based on their membership of a racial or ethnic group, typically one that is a minority or marginalized. Institutional racism, also known as systemic racism, is a form of racism that is embedded as normal practice within a society or an organization. It can lead to such issues as discrimination in criminal justice, in employment and housing, healthcare, political power, education, among other issues. Recently publicized events in the United States, beloved, unleashed an unconstrained worldwide outcry concerning how Edenic people in this land are treated. Countries all over the world held protests regarding the injustice that was committed against Mr. Floyd when he was held on the ground handcuffed with a knee in his neck for over 8 minutes by a Minneapolis police officer. The United States has reprimanded other countries for how they treat their citizens and ethnic minorities, even to the extent that they place economic sanctions on these countries. Nevertheless, the U.S. for over 400 years has exercised inhumane treatment to a people they despise and created laws and rules that disproportionately affect Edenic people negatively. Now, the United States finds themselves in the spotlight as other nations condemn them for the treatment of people called African Americans. When people of color previously reported the treatment they received, the accounts they conveyed were not believed. But now, due to technology that is readily available, accounts are seen in real time and are substantiated. This supports previous claims of what this race of people has gone through, the abuse and the corruption. Other nations observe the horrendous treatment that has been dealt to people of color in America. And with a huge public outcry against racism here and worldwide, there has been a mounting voice of the nations around the world condemning the treatment of Adenic people in the United States. Demonstrations began in Minneapolis on May 26, the day after the video was shared. And by Tuesday, those police officers were all arrested, and the FBI said that they would call for an investigation after the video showed that official police accounts of the arrest had borne little resemblance to what actually occurred. That night, hundreds of protesters flooded the Minneapolis streets. Protests sprang up in Memphis, Los Angeles, New York, from Atlanta to Detroit to Washington, D.C. Beloved, recall the words of prophecy when the Holy Nabi declared, they, meaning the African Americans, are filling many of the major cities of America. Those were the cities, he proclaimed, where the populations of blacks can be found. You cannot think for one moment that the government was not threatened by this, as he said. In August of 1997, Abner Louima, an unarmed, defenseless Haitian security guard with no criminal record whatsoever, was falsely arrested by Brooklyn police officers who tortured and horrifically raped him. They literally took him into a bathroom stall where the police officers sodomized him, forcing a broom handle into him, nearly fatally rupturing his bladder and colon. Among other near-fatal injuries, he necessitated 3 major surgeries and 3 months of hospitalization. The officer who committed this atrocity is free and holds a government job. In November 1999, Amidou Diallo, an unarmed, defenseless black man who was shot to death just outside his home with 21 bullets fired at him by police officers. The police murderers received a slap on the wrist, despite significant public footage. Subsequently, a seemingly endless series of murders in the years to follow would come. You've heard of some of these names: Eric Garner, Sandra Bland, Michael Brown. The list goes on. We can name dozens. The police guilty of these injustices acted with impunity and were never held accountable for their murderous conduct. And though there were sporadic protests and outrage against these murders was expressed, as well as outrage against the impunity with which the police that committed these murders, nothing of significance happened. And you also saw that it didn't even improve, though the brutal police beating of this unarmed, defenseless Rodney King in 1999 sparked riots. Still little to no change was seen. On the evening before his wedding, an unarmed and innocent Sean Bell was shot and killed by police with 50 bullets. Freddie Gray died after his spine was crushed and severed in a police van. And on the night of March 13th of this year, 2020, 3 police officers battered open the door at the home of Breonna Taylor, an emergency medical technician. Police fraudulently claimed a drug investigation. Mrs. Taylor was in her bed unarmed, and the police shot at her at least 8 times, killing her. The police officers who murdered Mrs. Taylor have not been charged. In an article, beloved, by Global Research on June 2nd of this year. They headlined, "The World Cannot Breathe, Squashed by the U.S., a country built on genocide and slavery." In this report, they say that more than 2 centuries of lies are now being exposed. Bizarre tales about freedom and democracy are collapsing as a house of cards. For more than 2 centuries, a country which calls itself the pinnacle of freedom, the article reads, has been in fact the absolute opposite, the epicenter of brutality and terror. And the report goes on to tell the truths of this country. They ask, what really is the United States? Is anyone asking? Searching for its roots? What about this? A simple, honest answer. The United States is simply the beefy offspring of European colonialist culture and its exceptionalism, racism, and barbarity. This is being spread. The news medias around the world are speaking out now. And there's a reason for this, beloved. In the Country of Freedom publication, it was noted saying that 2.3 million human beings are rotting away in the increasingly privatized prisons. The U.S. prisoner rate is the highest in the world. Holding people behind bars is big business, and minorities form a disproportionate high percentage of the detainees. The most recent numbers unleashed in this uprising, it opened many eyes in the United States and elsewhere. African Americans, Native Americans, and other oppressed people in the United States are brothers and sisters of those billions of men and women who are, to this day, colonized, brutalized, and murdered by the empire all over the world. There is a world exposure of what is taking place. National Geographic is one of the most respected publications on earth. And on June 3rd, 2020, they authored an article that was entitled, "It was a modern day of lynching. Violent deaths reflect a brutal American legacy." This was reported in National Geographic, one of the most respected publications in the world. They stated that violent deaths reflect a brutal American legacy. As they went on to speak of what happened, they continued to give history. From 1877 to 1950, more than 4,400 black men, women, and children were lynched by white mobs, according to the Equal Justice Initiative. Black people were shot, skinned, burned alive, bludgeoned, hanged from trees. Lynchings were often conducted within the sight of the institutions of justice, on the lawns of courthouses. And some historians say the violence against thousands of black people who were lynched after the Civil War, my goodness, they blamed it on vigilante attacks and abusive police tactics, and that is still used against black people today. As they continue, they said, "We have never confronted our nation's greatest burden following 2 centuries of enslaving black people, which is the fiction that black people are not only evolved and are less human, less worthy, and less deserving than white people," the author said. The notion of white supremacy fueled a century of racism and racial violence against Edenic people. Thousands of lynchings, mass killings, and a presumption of dangerousness and guilt that persists to this day. So when Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, or George Floyd, when they are killed, the immediate instinct of police, prosecutors, and too many elected officials is to protect the white people involved. Video recordings complicate that strategy now. But even graphic violence, caught on tape, will be insufficient to outcomes as long as the enduring refusal to reckon with our nation's history of racial injustice in National Geographic. Oh, beloved. As they continue to reveal much of what has transpired and take place, they said it doesn't matter or make a difference what you do, whether you're bird watching, selling water on the sidewalk, or reporting the news. Your very presence signifies a threat because of the meanings associated with blackness, such as dangerous, impure, inhuman, criminal. Breathing while black is a crime. This is the history of this country. So many black people were lynched just for being black. It gives white people power, which is why that woman, this woman in the park, in Central Park, can say she was going to call the police just because this black man told her, you're not allowed to have your dog in the park loose and defecating. And she threw in his face, I will call the police and they will definitely pick you up and you'll be found guilty. This has gone global, beloved. It has not just been confined to the United States, as we see the publications that are reporting. But after what happened to George Floyd, there was swift rebuke by the United Nations. And on June 5th, 2020, they reported UN experts condemn modern-day racial terror lynchings in the U.S. A group of 66 United Nations human rights monitors representing their nations have issued a devastating critique on what they call modern-day racial terror in the U.S. in the form of state-sponsored police violence against Black Americans. They said that the action marks an unparalleled outpouring of criticism by the UN's independent body of human rights experts. And they have reported that the fundamental racial inequality and discrimination that characterizes life in the United States for Black people, that African Americans continue to experience racial terror in state-sponsored and privately organized violence. And this legacy of racial terror remains from the time of slavery on to modern day. The UN said, we are deeply concerned. The nation is on the brink of a militarized response, martial law that reenacts the injustices that have driven people to the streets. And beloved, we were told by the Holy Melek that this would happen. It would introduce martial law. And now the United Nations is condemning the hypocrisy and history of the U.S. and what they have done for years. Oh, beloved. They are now protesting around the world. In Rome, in Paris, Amsterdam, Berlin, in Brussels, Madrid, Britain, cities all across Europe. Protesters have taken to the streets to express solidarity with Americans while demanding changes within their own countries. The brutality that has been shown on the media against protesters has come under scrutiny, especially the police reaction to mostly peaceful protests. And it has been noted. But beloved of the Most High, the words of the highest power are mighty indeed. The Holy Malachi revealed unto us the manifestation of the word of the Almighty concerning racism and the rise thereof. And as we watch the unfolding of the word, we abide in the consciousness that this is one aspect of the one world order agenda. The Holy Malachi made us aware to be watchful as we observe various places throughout the world rising up in protest to what has happened in the U.S. They are also addressing racism in their own countries. Recall the words, America is the last frontier that must be brought down. This rift by racism, along with the ushering in of martial law and the economic collapse and creation of a new monetary system, the blending of one religion will result in the establishment of the one world order. And now, through racism, as they are rebelling all around the world against racism in an effort that it would be diminished, that all races would come together as one. But it was the Holy Malachi that declared unto us that this spirit was released when the people came together as one in the Tower of Babel. That spirit was released. At that time, they were scattered. But now, as they come together in one world order, we know that ultimately the Most High will prevail and they will be destroyed. We have to bless the Most High because the Holy Malachi gives us understanding and vision to see how all of this works. Let's see around the world what they are doing. Thousands chant, I can't breathe, at Amsterdam rally, angry at the death that took place in America. It's on June 1st of this year. Thousands of protesters chanting, I can't breathe. And in more than 10,000 of them in the square in Amsterdam were shouting Black Lives Matter and no justice, no peace. Protests went on in Lisbon, Portugal, where they all gathered, not only to deal with the racism here in America, but they made known that this also takes place in their own country, and they called for an end to it. It was reported on June 7th of this year by the Associated Press. Thousands joined Rome's first big anti-racism rally in Rome, Italy. In Rome's sprawling People's Square, thousands of demonstrators turned out for the city's first major rally against racism, with a great majority wearing masks to protect themselves against the coronavirus. Participants listened to speeches for several hours and held up handmade placards that read, Black Lives Matter, and cards that read, It's a white problem. At one point, the protesters, most of them young and some with children or young siblings, kneeled and raised their fists in solidarity with those fighting racism. It's quite unfortunate in this 21st century that people of color are being treated as if they are lepers, said a 26-year-old Ghanaian who was at the rally. He has a master's degree in business management, but he said he occasionally felt racist attitudes, even when riding the subways in Rome. Migration of people of color to Italy, including from sub-Saharan Africa, was relatively infrequent till about 25 years ago. But the noisy, peaceful rally had many organizers, including different groups. And of one of the groups, a 25-year-old student there in Rome, she said, "There are some problems in this country if all these people have showed up. It is around the world. Thousands took to the streets in Madrid to protest. And these protests continue throughout the world, all throughout Europe, in Germany, Australia, Brazil to Mexico to Canada. A third of the people of African descent in Europe reported facing racial harassment as they continued in Europe. We learned, being in lockdown, what is important in our lives. This is from a Sheila Kinsley, who lived in Rome for 10 years. And it spurred us all the way for us to come and say that something has to be done, despite the pandemic. My goodness. So as they continued, beloved, as this continues to take place around the world, from London, Seoul, Korea, Sydney, Australia, Rio de Janeiro, South Africa, where they are saying that Black America stood with them when they went through apartheid. Now they stand with Black America as they go through the continued racism. But what's important to note is, as the Most High said, this is all for a purpose and a reason. This cry against racism around the world, that they can begin to break down those walls, that all would come together as one. These are injustices. We are not looking at this lightly. It is real, beloved. But we bless the Most High that as the children of the kingdom of light, we must hold fast to the ways, the expressions, and the mannerisms of the kingdom. That when the evil days come nigh, we will stand shielded in the Ruach of the highest power for this journey at hand. We are being made ready as we are delivered from ideology of race, as the Holy Malachi has taught us. He taught us that there are two types of descendants: the righteous from the line of Seth, and the unrighteous from the line of Cain. And while these atrocities have taken place, and they yet continue, we are taught to focus on the decree of the highest power as we return unto the sovereign realm of the Most High. Beloved, we must uphold all that we have heard and let it not fall as sand through our fingers. It must be grasped not only by intellect, but it must be made known by our mind, spirit, soul, and body as we glorify the Most High and we thank Him for what He has done. We see it, we feel it, we know it, but we know what the Most High is teaching us and revealing unto us through His holy Malachi. And we are blessed that as we continue on this journey to the end, we abide in the righteousness of the highest power. We glorify the Most High with this revealing of the book of the prophet